Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy. 2004 Honda Element, yeah, it's mine sitting behind me, and what is its problem? Well, if you haven't guessed by the title of this video, it has an alternator issue. I've discovered that the charging system was not quite working up to snuff. And why don't we go through a little bit of electrical testing? I'll show you what I'm talking about, and maybe go a few steps further, just in case it's not the alternator. Because I knew that the alternator was having an issue, I removed the battery, I charged it up over at my charging station, and I also took the time to clean it off. So I have a nice clean battery in here, and I know my battery is good and charged up. The battery is charged to 12.9 volts. We will now start the vehicle. No electrical loads or anything. I'm at 12.8, 12.9 volts, but as soon as I start putting loads on it, watch what happens. That is not sufficient voltage to keep the battery charged and keep the engine running. Wah, wah, wah. And I can actually hear the alternator not so happy right now. First test is to check to see if we have battery voltage at the black yellow wire coming off the back of the alternator when we turn the key on. Here's the connector going into the top of the alternator. The top wire here on the upper right is the black yellow wire that I'm speaking of, and the one right below it is the white green wire that we're going to be testing. Now these other two wires over here on the left we're not going to be concerned with. But for starters, we're going to check to see if we have battery voltage at this black yellow wire here on top when we turn the key on. And here we are. I'm going to check that black yellow wire. 12.29 volts. And just to verify that's battery voltage, well, 12.39. Got a slight voltage drop there, not much of one. And this next part was a little confusing as far as whether or not the ELD or the computer is having an effect on the charging system here. And on that white-green wire, what we're looking for is actually nothing. We don't want power, we don't want ground. If there's no power and no ground and the alternator still is not charging, then the alternator is known bad. So if you do see power or ground there, then it's an issue. Given that we're just looking for power and ground, I'm switching over to my power probe because that will tell me if I have power or ground on that circuit. I'm going to start the thing up and we'll check to see if we have anything there. One last thing, I want to make sure that the alternator has good ground, so I'm just touching the case and I'm seeing a ground there, so we're good. But we don't see anything on this signal wire here, so that means the alternator is the problem. Alternator bad. Let's replace it. Step one, disconnect the negative battery cable. And the reason why that happens so easily, remember when I said I took this out to charge it and everything? I never tightened that cable back down, I just left it on there for testing. Now the patient is asleep and we can go and remove that alternator. Well, as you've seen, the alternator's down here. Oh, for the heck of it, I'm just going to disconnect the connector. Ugh. I say I'm going to do things. There we go. I'm going to worry about the other piece in a minute here, but the first thing I got to do is get the serpentine belt out of the way, and then I'm going to get the power steering also out of the way. This power steering hose, if you follow it back, is retained here, and just pull it out of its mount. Serpentine belt has a 14mm fastener on the front. Pull it back towards you, release tension, and try to slip it off the power steering. There we are. Let's see if we can get the power steering pump out of the way. I think there are two 12mm fasteners that hold this power steering pump in place. I was right about the 12mm part. Let's see how right I am about there being two. There's one. Looks like there's only two. It started moving. Looks like they're both the same length. Now, just pull you up out of the way. And look at that. There's an alternator right there. How convenient. There's one fastener up here and there's two down underneath that we can't see from up here. But what I'm noticing is this overflow is going to kind of be in the way, not only to get to those lower fasteners, but also when I go to remove the alternator out of this area here. So I think it best if I just remove this reservoir altogether. My plan of attack, there's one fastener, 10 millimeter, up here behind these. If you're wondering what these things are, these are for my HID headlights. I'll post a link in the description to their installation so you can see why they're here, but normally you wouldn't see this. But behind it, there's a 10 millimeter fastener that I'm going to remove, and I should be able to pull this whole thing up out of here. Given that it has a tube that runs from here over to the top of the radiator and the radiator cap, I'm going to remove it at the radiator cap and just take this whole thing out with its hose. Hose pliers. I always put links in the descriptions of my videos to the tools that I use, so you'll know where to get these. I love my T-handles. There's a 10 millimeter right at the top. I was afraid of that. Ah, jeez. You go into it with the best of intentions. Well, it might just get zip tied back on. There's that guy. I'm going to go for the 12s underneath first. And I'm completely doing this blind. Yeah, that's not working. And try short well. It's backed right up against that fan. I can often get away with using smaller tools. Main concern being the leverage needed. But really, it'd be nice just to be able to get on the fastener. Okay, this is still sticking out a bit far, so I'm going to try short well. Going for the shorter one. I don't want to put any torque on it until I'm sure I'm on the fastener, because the last thing I want to do is round off a fastener I can't even see. Well, either broke or it's coming out really easy. I'm going to vote for that it's coming out really easy because it's still spinning. I don't have a piece in my hand like I did with the other fastener that went into the top of the radiator for the overflow. But I am glad I took that out. It's certainly afforded me some more room. I'm actually going to try the deep well on this outer one. The fan's not as in the way with this one as it was with the other one. This fastener is not as easy to remove as the previous one. Finally. That's two. Hopefully that just means there's the one left. I'm going to switch back to my 3/8 for this one. Get myself the most leverage. I hear a tensioner in my future. This one's longer than the rest by a long shot. Now I did not disconnect the wire going to the back yet. I'm gonna do that now. If it's like all the other ones, yeah, it's 10 millimeter. Any excuse to use a T-handle. Love them. They work better when you use the right size. Lastly, on the back here, there's a wire that's clipped that I need to decouple. So I'm going to try sneaking a flathead screwdriver in here. I'm using a Honda part. And part of the reason, well, I like using Honda parts, even though they're wicked expensive, is I also looked online when I was doing my research on this problem and found that a lot of people were having issues with some of the aftermarket alternators. So if you do need to do this job, you might want to bite the bullet and step up to the original equipment alternator because, as I said, there have been issues reported with the other ones. Now, I'm a little concerned because this one showed up with, well, sort of a broken end there. It sort of got beat around during shipping, I suppose. So hopefully that's not going to cause a problem because still the part where it clips down on there is intact. I'm hoping that the weather seal in the connector takes care of the rest of it. And hopefully it slides in. There's so much hope in auto repair, isn't there? It's when you lose all hope, well, it gets really interesting. Okay, I'm obviously going to start with that long top one because I can't even see where the lower ones go into. Oh, wait. Suppose we should reconnect that electrical connector, eh? I don't think it would charge very well without this connected. I definitely think it's worth mentioning not to over tighten this fastener. I'm using this T-handle, I've got a lot of feedback. Over tighten this and you could damage your brand new alternator. So just snug it up and that's it. Don't go crazy because you'll break that terminal right out of the back of the alternator if you go too tight. Now, I'm going to start with that long bolt. Give myself just a little bit of wiggle. These other two fasteners appear to be the exact same length. Just a matter of threading them down in, I suppose. Once again, you don't need to over tighten here, you just need to snug things up. And 1/4-inch tools would be perfect if you're not used to running things down like that. Less leverage with shorter tools. Restore that electrical connection. Hopefully it clips in. It did. We're good. Tighten up the last fastener. And I already checked. That tensioner has 3 fasteners on it. Yes, it would be easier to do it now, but it's not imperative that I do it now. I can come back at a later date. I'm gonna have to take the engine mount off in order to access it, but block of wood underneath the engine, I'll be good. I'm gonna start routing the belt up through here now, hoping that it catches down below. Ah, there we go. Might have got away with it. Gonna bring the power steering pump back in. Just drop her back in here. I think I did it. I did do it. That broken fastener, it's either gonna get zip tied or I had to like wiggle this off of what was left. It might snap into place. If it does, I'm gonna leave it alone. This is my car, and even if it does come loose, I don't think it's gonna come into contact with anything that's life-threatening, but there is this little thing that's gotta fit down into the bottom of the radiator. And I'm really wishing now I hadn't put the power steering pump in first. Yeah, if you do this, put this in before the power steering pump. And as I suspected, there's enough of this whatever left on the front of this where the fastener was to hold this overflow in place. Well, I feel it's held down there pretty good. But I see a location where I can run a zip tie through, so I'm just going to take advantage of doing that. Yeah, I'm totally good with that. It's not going anywhere. Let's hook the negative battery cable back up and see how it charges. I'm always looking for an excuse to use my T-handles. Love these. I'd say it's a little bit better than the 12 volts it was doing before. Let's turn some loads on. It's like a whole new electrical system. Very happy. We are charging now. Yes, 14 volts, all loads on. We definitely got a working alternator. Yay! Now, something I forgot to mention. Also check fuse 15 underneath the dash if you're not charging. Just in case if that fuse blows, that will also affect the charging system. So check that and check the other things first. And if you see everything that I saw here today, place the alternator and hopefully had the same result. Strongly recommend the original equipment alternator. If you have automotive questions not covered in this video, I'd ask for you to go to EricTheCarGuy.com. I'll put a link in the description to make it easy for you. Close each of my videos and be safe, have fun, stay dirty. I will see you next time, and thank you so much for watching.